All right, so I'm at Morristown National Historic Park in New Jersey. This is the place where George Washington's troops set up camp for the back in 1779. I think for actually a couple years around that time. And this is my first stop, the Wick House, where General St. Clair set up his headquarters. So this is a little farmstead. A guy named Henry Wick used to live here, and then the Army took it over when Washington was here. This is the garden for the home. So I'm at an area called the Pennsylvania Line, which is where the troops of the Pennsylvania Brigade held up for the winter of 1779 to 80, which apparently was bitter, brutal, cold, and all they had was these little wooden huts. And right now I'm in front of the officers' quarters. A fireplace, and I'm assuming those are the bunks. This is a replica. The footer on there's some cement on the footer there that says 1964. So I'm assuming that's when it was built. The officers' quarters actually had a window, height of luxury apparently. And there's a few regular soldiers' huts down there that I'll check out too. This one's a duplex. There's another one on this side. Same thing, just mirror image. So I'm here at the soldiers' huts, and there's 3 full replicas and what looks like the ruins of the 4th, but since they're supposed to be all replicas, I'm assuming that's ruins of a replica. I don't know. I don't think there's any original structures left. But apparently this whole hillside was just covered in these huts to house, I think it said like 1,000 troops from the Pennsylvania Brigade. So I'm gonna go inside one. And so it's bigger than the officers' quarters that I was just in, but it looks like it's meant to house 12 troops. Looks like there's 6 bunks per side with a central fireplace. Oh, and soldiers' huts do have a window. So I imagine this would have been somewhat insulated, or at least, have the space between the timbers mudded and whatever. So this is pretty much where they would spend the whole winter of 1779 to 80. Like I said, that was supposed to be a very brutally cold winter. So if they weren't doing drills or inspections or whatever, I imagine they would have spent their time in here out of the cold. So I'm on the Grand Parade route in Morristown. I'm kind of just next to the soldiers' huts I was just at. According to the brochure, this is where they would have their drilling and marches, and it was kind of the center of life, I guess, at one time during the encampment of 1779. It's just a road in a forest now, but apparently back then it was where everybody came, and all the soldiers did their stuff here. And it's right next to the Pennsylvania Brigade. So now I'm on a trail which is actually the trace of an old road from when the encampment was here. This is the Mendham Elizabethtown Road, which, you know, it's just a foot trail now. There's no motor traffic or anything, but it's one of the roads that was built when the encampment was here, because it was apparently only a few farmers here, and then all of a sudden there was 10,000 troops that had to get around. So some roads were built, and this is one of them. And it's, you can tell it's a little wider than the other trails, and it just has a little different feel to it than the other trails I've seen in the park. So I'm at the Cross Estate section of the Morristown Park, and this was a private residence built around a little after 1900, I think, and then purchased by the National Park in 1975. And one of its distinguishing features is the gardens, which are these kind of classic, like, you know, cultivated, manicured gardens. Right now I'm in the pergola. And of course it's March, so, you know, nothing's started blooming or turning green yet. I imagine it won't be for another couple months. But these, you know, all the plants and trees have little labels. Looking at spiderwort, sweet bay magnolia, and it's a pretty big garden. It's, I guess, at least an acre. And there's a mansion and an old water tower, which is pretty neat, which I'll be going to in a second after I'm done here. Red vein encampment. Not sure I'm not pronouncing that correctly. And it's like a miniature version of the classic gardens you'd see in Europe or something on those estates. So there's still in the garden, and there's this interesting, there's a sign here says time, and there's this big clay pot. Not sure what the connection is. It's like they're trying to save time in a bottle. Yep. All right, so the rain's let up a little bit, so I can actually put the umbrella down. So I was just in the gardens, and this is the mansion that goes along with those gardens. From what I was reading, there's two main families that owned it. The family that built it, and then I think 20 or 30 years later, there was another family that took it over and added on. So I think that accounts for why there's like a clear division in the yellow side of the house and the stone side. One's probably an addition. The gardens that was an earlier. Those are an add-on from the second family, the Cross family, I believe. And also, an addition that they made, which I'm walking over to now, is a water tower. And I've never seen a water tower like this. It is cool. So the water tower, I guess the water tank itself is up near the top. I think up where the sides turn to wood. And there used to be two balconies. You can see the holes just between the first and second floor windows. And then you can still see the supports up near the top of the stone section. According to the cross-section view I saw before, the water tower is, or the water tank is up in this section here. Yeah, this is pretty neat. I wasn't sure I was just gonna even come to this part of the park, but glad I did. This is pretty cool. The mansion and the gardens and that thing. So I think this is the biggest part of the park. Well, the park has 3 units. This unit, and then there's a section called Fort Nonsense. That's the name of it. And then there's a section in downtown Morristown that I'm gonna check out. So I think we're gonna hit the trail and head over to Fort Nonsense. I would have done a little more hiking, like in the little back country sections, but I hate hiking in rain. And it's not raining at this second, but its forecast is pretty miserable the rest of the day, so I don't want to get a mile in the back and then it start raining again. Anyway, off to see some nonsense. So I'm stopping at Fort Nonsense. It's on top of a hill that overlooks Morristown, which you can see in the distance there. And this was a fortification that Washington ordered to prevent a British attack of supply lines and of the town. And it apparently wasn't like a full-blown fort. It was a series of redoubts with gun emplacements. And there's these stones in the ground. I'm guessing these are the outline of the redoubts. Not much up here in terms of like any reconstructions of anything. Like I said, just the outline of what I'm assuming was the fort and the one gun over there. And apparently the name, I was reading one of the signs, the name Nonsense came from apparently some of Washington's people said it was just the fort itself was nonsense because it was just a way to keep the troops busy. But it also said Washington knew the value of holding the high ground. So, and this is on like almost like a ridge. It's kind of, the sides are pretty steep and has a really good vantage point over the town. So, yeah, so I'm at my final stop here in Morristown National Historic Park, and this is Washington's headquarters. It's a mansion kind of in town, in the middle of Morristown, and it was the mansion of a family that lived here that allowed Washington to use it as headquarters. And apparently the house was built in the 1770s. Of course, Washington was here like toward the end of the 1770s. So this would have been a brand new like state-of-the-art mansion of its time. And apparently it's all mostly original structure. Like, this is what it would have looked like when Washington was here. Apparently there's no add-ons or anything majorly different. I was talking to a ranger, and as far as the inside goes, because they're not doing tours right now because of COVID, the kitchen is the only thing in the house that they know for a fact was a kitchen when Washington was here. Everything else is kind of guesswork. It's one of those places. It's, you see it referenced sometimes, like, oh, Washington slept here. Well, yes, Washington slept here, for real.